I quietly moved my entire pension to a new account and didn't say a word to anyone. That evening, as I stepped into the house, my wife and daughter were already standing there waiting, their eyes filled with fury. "What did you do with our money?" she screamed. I stood at the ATM like an idiot. I didn't push back. No explanations. I simply laid a thick stack of papers on the table. 47 pages of bank statements. Every transaction laid bare. Both of them froze, their faces turning bone white. "I'm incredibly grateful you're here with me today. Before we dive in, I'd love to know, how did you discover this story? Was it through a friend's recommendation, YouTube's suggestions, or perhaps you've been following along from the beginning? Drop a comment and let me know your journey here. Your engagement truly means everything." Quick reminder, this narrative weaves together fictional elements designed for entertainment and reflection. While names and places are imaginary, the lessons about boundaries, self-respect, and financial independence are genuinely valuable and worth considering. The pharmacy clerk looked at me with that apologetic smile people use when they're about to deliver bad news. I just handed her my card for a simple prescription refill, the same blood pressure medication I picked up every month. $47.50. She swiped the card, waited. Her smile flickered. "I'm sorry, sir. It's been declined. Insufficient funds." I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. My work jacket still smelled like coal dust and machine oil. I'd come straight from the mine, my shift ending just 30 minutes earlier. 12 hours underground, and now this. That can't be right," I said. "My paycheck deposited Friday." She glanced at the card reader, then back at me with genuine sympathy. "Would you like to try another card? This is the only one I have." I'd been carrying that card for 10 months, ever since Susan convinced me to put my paychecks into our joint account. "Simpler that way," she'd said. I pulled 2 20s and a 10 from my wallet, emergency cash I kept for moments like this. The clerk processed it quickly. I took my prescription and walked out into the October cold, my mind already turning over the possibilities. A bank error maybe. Some computer glitch. The drive home should have been 15 minutes of unwinding, watching the Appalachian hills fade into dusk. Instead, it was 15 minutes of mounting dread. $3,400. That's what should have been sitting in the account after bills. The mortgage was paid off years ago. How does a card get declined on a $47 purchase? Sleep didn't come easy that night. I lay there listening to Susan's breathing beside me, steady and untroubled, while my mind chased numbers in the dark. Morning came cold and gray. I left the house before sunrise, telling Susan I needed to check something before my shift. She barely stirred. The credit union didn't open until 7, but I was parked in their lot by quarter to watching the minutes tick down. Angela Brooks had been handling my account for 3 years. When she unlocked the door and saw me waiting, she smiled, but I caught something shift in her expression. "Morning, Mr. Donnelly. Everything all right?" "Not sure yet," I said, following her inside. "My card got declined yesterday. I was hoping you could take a look at my account." She settled behind her desk, fingers moving across her keyboard. I stood there, work boots still dusty, aware of how out of place I probably looked. I spent my days in tunnels 950 feet below ground. Banking offices felt like foreign territory. Her professional mask slipped just for a second. "Your current balance is $147.83. The number hit me like a roof fall. My ears started ringing. That can't be right. My paycheck was... I stopped doing the math. $3,400 minus the usual bills. Should have been over $3,000 sitting there. "Can I see the transaction history last 10 months? Angela nodded. No questions asked. She clicked a few keys, and somewhere behind her, a printer whirred to life. The stack that emerged was thicker than I expected. She gathered the pages and handed them across the desk. 47 pages, she said quietly. Back in my truck, I couldn't bring myself to start the engine. The parking lot was filling up with morning traffic, people going about their normal business while my world tilted sideways. I opened the folder, spread the first page across my steering wheel. December transactions stared back at me in neat columns. SoulCycle membership, $340. Online shopping Sephora, $287. Venmo transfer to someone named Derek Palmer, $500. Cash advance at 2:47 in the morning, $400. My hands started shaking somewhere around page 12. Breckenridge Lodge, $2,800 for a ski trip I never took. Another transfer to Derek Palmer, $1,500 this time, stamped 3:14 a.m. like someone was moving money in the middle of the night, hoping I wouldn't notice. Valley View Spa charges, $450 repeating month after month. By page 40, my fingerprints were leaving smudges. Coal dust permanently embedded under my nails, marking the evidence of where my money had gone. Every dollar on these pages I'd earned 950 feet underground. I'd breathed coal dust for it, damaged my hearing for it, felt my back give out a little more each year for it. I did the math the way miners do, practical and straightforward. 10 months of work, roughly 20 paychecks, $3,400 each more when I pulled overtime, maybe $80,000 total, give or take. The account showed $147.83. Someone had taken it all. A tap on my window jerked me back to the present. Marcus Lewis, one of my crew, stood there with concern written across his weathered face. Shift started in 40 minutes. I rolled down the window. "Stu, you okay, buddy?" The question seemed impossible to answer. I just discovered that someone had drained every penny I'd earned in 10 months. Someone who had access to my account. Someone who knew exactly how much I made and when I made it. "Not sure yet, Marcus. You need anything? Time to think. Time to figure out who'd been stealing from me. Time to decide what to do about 47 pages of proof that my life had been built on a lie I didn't know I was living." "Just need a minute," I said. He nodded, understanding the way men who work dangerous jobs understand each other. Sometimes you need space to process. I sat in that truck for nearly 2 hours, reading through every page, hoping somehow the numbers would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. They didn't. The morning sun climbed higher, warming the cab, but I felt cold straight through. By the time I finally turned the key in the ignition, something fundamental had shifted inside me. Not anger yet. Anger would come later. This was something colder, more permanent, a decision forming in my chest, like coal under pressure, getting harder with every second that passed. The engine turned over, and I pulled out of that parking lot, knowing I'd never be the same man who'd parked there 2 hours earlier. Wednesday morning found me back at the credit union before sunrise. Angela was unlocking the front door when I pulled into the lot. She recognized my truck and waited, holding the door open. "Mr. Donnelly, you're here early. We need to take care of something before my shift." She led me inside the building, still holding that overnight chill. Her desk lamp clicked on. I remained standing, my work thermos clutched in one hand. "I need to open a new account. Individual. Just my name on it." Her fingers paused over her keyboard for half a second. In that brief hesitation, I saw understanding flicker across her face. She'd been working in banking long enough to recognize the sound of a man drawing a line. "Checking or savings, Mr. Donnelly?" "Checking, and I'll need to redirect my paycheck to it." "I can help with that. Give me about 20 minutes for the paperwork." While she typed and printed forms, I sat and signed where she indicated. Stuart Donnelly. Individual account. The pen felt heavier than it should have, each signature a small act of reclamation. When we finished, she slid a temporary debit card across the desk. "Your permanent card will arrive in 7 to 10 business days. The routing change for your paycheck will take effect next pay period." "Friday," I said. "That's right, Friday." She looked at me, then really looked her professional courtesy, giving way to something more human. "Is everything all right, Mr. Donnelly?" "It will be," I told her. The mine was different that day. same darkness, same depth, same crew. But I moved through my shift, wrapped in silence, speaking only when necessary. Tommy noticed first. "You feeling all right, Stu? You're quiet." "I'm just focused," I said. But it wasn't focus. It was calculation. Every ton of coal I cut from the face, every roof bolt I drilled into place, I was doing math. 3 days until Friday. 3 days until the direct deposit hit my new account. 3 days until Susan checked the joint account and found it empty. The anticipation wound through me like a fuse, slow burning and inevitable. Thursday at lunch, Marcus caught me sitting alone on the surface, eating my sandwich without tasting it. He settled onto the bench beside me. "Something's eating at you." I took a bite, chewed, swallowed. Around us, the November air carried the smell of diesel fuel and wet leaves. Working through something," I said. "Money trouble." The question hit closer than he knew. Marcus had been underground almost as long as I had. We'd started on the same crew 30 years back. We'd earned the right to speak plainly with each other. "The opposite of trouble, more like clarity?" He nodded slowly. "I'm here if you need me." "I know." Friday morning arrived with frost on my windshield and iron in my spine. During my first break, I pulled out my phone and checked the banking app. The notification sat there waiting, clean and simple. Direct deposit received. $3,400. Oakdale Credit Union. Individual account. I opened the old joint account app next. The screen loaded, and there it sat in bold numbers. $0, 0 cents. I closed my phone and returned to work, but something in my chest had loosened. Not relief exactly, more like the feeling of setting down a weight you'd been carrying so long you'd forgotten it was there. The end of shift came with the usual exhaustion. I showered in the bathhouse, watching coal dust swirl down the drain, and dressed in clean clothes. My reflection in the spotted mirror showed a man who looked the same as yesterday, but wasn't. Not anymore. The drive home stretched longer than usual, each familiar landmark passing like a countdown. Rosie's Diner, where Susan and I used to have breakfast on Sundays. The turnoff to Millbrook Reservoir, where I hadn't been fishing in over a year. Main Street with its struggling shops and empty storefronts. My hands gripped the steering wheel knuckles, pressing white against my skin. The dashboard clock glowed in the gathering dusk. 6:15. Susan would be home. Lydia, too. They'd both have tried to use their cards by now. Tried and failed. The thoughts came unbidden, a litany of sacrifices I'd made without being asked. 38 years breathing stone dust and diesel fumes. Black lung forming in tissue that would never heal. Hearing loss from machines that screamed like wounded animals. Scars on my hands from cable snaps and roof falls. A back that hadn't stood straight in a decade. And for what? So my wife could get spa treatments twice a month. So her daughter could send money to some boyfriend I'd never met. I turned onto my street, the maples lining the road bare against the purple sky. My house sat third from the corner, a modest ranch I'd bought with my first wife 30 years ago. Paid it off 7 years back. Now Susan lived in it, Lydia lived in it, and I was the one who felt like a guest. Both their cars occupied the driveway. Susan's Honda gleaming in the porch light, Lydia's Mazda parked at an angle. No movement in the windows. No television glow. Just still waiting darkness. I sat in my truck after cutting the engine, letting the quiet settle around me. 30 seconds passed. A minute. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. Normal evening sounds in a normal neighborhood, while inside my chest, something ancient and immovable was taking shape. I climbed out, my boots crunching on the gravel drive. 3 steps to the walkway, 6 steps to the porch. My hand found the doorknob solid and cold under my palm. The house held its breath on the other side. I turned the key and pushed the door open. Susan stood in the center of the living room, arms wrapped around herself so tight, her fingers left white marks on her elbows. Lydia paced beside her like something caged. her phone gripped in her hand hard enough to crack. The television sat dark. No music played, just the sound of my boots on the threshold and their combined breathing, quick and shallow. They turned to face me as one, and I saw it in their eyes. They knew. Not everything, not yet. But they knew something had changed. And they were afraid. Good. The metal lunchbox hit the hallway table with a sharp clang that echoed through the house. I didn't look up. Didn't need to. I could feel them watching me from the living room, Susan perched on the edge of the couch. Lydia standing beside her, both of them wound tight as springs. I shrugged off my navy Oakdale mining jacket and hung it on the hook by the door. The fabric was stiff with dried sweat and coal dust. My hands were black up to the wrists. The cuffs of my jeans stained dark. I'd been underground for 12 hours, breathing recycled air through a respirator, and I smelled like it's sulfur diesel and damp rock. Susan stood up. Her yoga pants were spotless, her tunic freshly pressed. Her makeup was perfect lips, a careful shade of rose. Lydia had just showered. I could smell the vanilla body wash from across the room. Her hair was still damp styled in loose waves, and she wore some kind of matching athleisure set that probably cost more than my work boots. Behind them, the living room looked like a showroom. The Peloton bike sat in the corner near the window, $2,400, according to the credit card statement I'd seen once, with a thin layer of dust on the seat. The designer chair leaned against the wall, still wrapped in plastic, the kind of ergonomic office furniture that runs $1,400 and never gets unwrapped. The flat-screen TV was enormous, at least 70 inches, mounted above the fireplace like some kind of shrine. Lydia's makeup was scattered across the coffee table, compacts, brushes, little pots of cream, with names I couldn't pronounce. Susan's voice cut through the silence. "What the hell did you do to the joint account?" Her hands were shaking. I stood at the bank like an idiot. "Are you trying to cut me and our daughter off?" Lydia stepped forward, thrusting her phone toward me. The screen showed the banking app, the balance in bold letters, $0. "Dad, what is this?" Her voice was high, accusing. "Where's the money?" I walked past them into the kitchen, filled a glass with water from the tap, drank it slowly. The refrigerator hummed. The clock on the wall ticked loud in the stillness. I remembered the day I'd agreed to the joint account. Susan had sat at this same table, her hand on mine, and said, "We're a family now. Families share everything." I'd believed her. Believed that was what you did when you loved someone. "I got a new card," I said. Susan's face went pale. "What?" "A new card, new account." I set the glass down carefully. "My paycheck goes there now." The silence that followed felt like the moment before a roof collapse, when you hear the timber groan and you know you've got seconds to move. 5 seconds. The clock ticked. The fridge cycled on. Then the explosion. "That's a joint account." Susan's voice cracked. "We agreed. You promised we'd share everything." "No," I said. "It's not." "What are you talking about?" Lydia was shouting now. "You can't just—" "I can." I looked at her, then at Susan. I did. Susan stepped closer, her voice dropping to something dangerous. "Stuart, we have bills. We have a life. You can't just, I've been paying for your life." My voice was steady, calm. "For 18 months, I've paid for everything. That's what families do." Susan's hands were fists at her sides. "That's what being married means." I almost laughed, almost. Instead, I walked to the window. Outside the driveway was neat, orderly. Susan's Honda CR-V, silver and spotless, barely 3 years old. The odometer read 16,300 miles the last time I'd checked, less than 5,000 miles a year. Lydia's Mazda 3 Cherry Red, less than 2 years old, 11,200 miles. Both of them garaged, waxed, maintained. My Silverado was parked behind them. 208,000 miles. Rust on the wheel wells. a dent in the tailgate from where I'd backed into a loading dock 6 years ago. The driver's seat was held together with duct tape. "You want to talk about family?" I said, still looking out the window. "Let's talk about it. Tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Susan's voice was shrill now. "No, we're talking about this now." I turned to face her. "I have a 5 o'clock shift. I've been underground for 12 hours. I'm going to bed." "Stuart, I'm being clear." I looked at her, then at Lydia. "We'll talk tomorrow, when I can show you the numbers." Lydia's mouth opened closed. Susan's eyes were wide, searching my face for something, fear maybe, or guilt. She wouldn't find it. I walked to the stairs. My boots were heavy on the hardwood, each step deliberate. My shoulder ached where I'd been bracing a hydraulic jack all afternoon. My knees complained on every step. At the bottom, I paused, one hand on the railing. "Numbers," I said again. "Tomorrow." Then I climbed the stairs, walked into the bedroom, and closed the door. The latch clicked softly. Downstairs, I heard their voices rise again. Susan's sharp and panicked, Lydia's higher, angrier. I sat on the edge of the bed, unlaced my boots, and set them side by side on the floor. The voices blurred into background noise like the ventilation fans in the mine. I lay back, stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow I'd show them the 47 pages. Tomorrow they'd see the numbers. Tomorrow they'd understand. Tomorrow I'll open that 47-page folder and show them every single number. But before I reveal the total amount that disappeared over 10 months, comment the number you think below. $20,000, $50, 000. Or more than that, write your guess, so I know you're still following this story. Please note the following story contains fictionalized elements added for illustrative purposes. If this content doesn't feel right for you, you're welcome to stop here. They didn't let me sleep. Around 8 o'clock, I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. I was lying on top of the covers, still in my jeans and flannel shirt, staring at the water stain on the ceiling. The voices downstairs had stopped half an hour ago. I'd heard a door slam, Lydia's room probably, and then nothing but the hum of the house settling into itself. The knock was soft, tentative. Susan's voice muffled through the door. "We need to talk, please." I sat up, clicked on the lamp. All right. When I opened the door, they were both standing in the hallway. Susan's makeup had smudged under her eyes. Lydia's arms were crossed, her jaw tight. "You can't just..." Susan's voice wavered. "We need to discuss this like adults." "Okay, downstairs, kitchen." We arranged ourselves around the kitchen table like opponents in a negotiation. Susan and Lydia on one side, me on the other. The overhead fluorescent light buzzed, harsh and unforgiving. Susan spoke first. "If you have a problem with how I manage the money, you should say something instead of this ambush." I did say something. Many times. You told me not to worry about it, because I was handling it. Her voice rose. "Do you think running a household is free?" "No, but I think it costs less than what's gone missing." I stood up. "I'll be right back." Outside, the October night was cold and still. My breath misted in the air as I crossed the driveway to the Silverado. I opened the passenger door and pulled out the manila folder from under the seat. 47 pages printed on standard white paper, folded once in the middle. When I walked back into the kitchen, Susan and Lydia were whispering urgently. They stopped when they saw me. I set the folder on the table. It landed with a deliberate thump. 10 months of statements. December through September. "Do you want to go through them with me?" Susan glanced at the folder like it might bite her. "I don't need to review my own transactions. Then let me highlight a few things." I opened the folder and pulled out the first page. Slid it across the table. December 18th. Soul Cycle Oakdale membership fee, $340. I pulled another page. December 19th. Sephora online purchase, $287. Another page. December 22nd. Venmo transfer to Derek Palmer, $500. Lydia's face went pale. I kept going, pulled more pages, laid them out in a line. January 15th, Breckenridge Mountain Lodge, $2,800. Ski rental, $650. Lift tickets, $420. That was a mother-daughter bonding trip, Susan's voice cracked. We needed that trip. I worked doubles all week. You told me the money was for emergency home repairs. I didn't stop. More pages. February 3rd, Valley View Spa, $450. February 17th, Valley View Spa, $450. March 3rd, Valley View Spa, $450. I tapped the pages. That's $1,350 for 3 spa visits, Susan. I paid $47.50 for blood pressure medication, and my card was declined. Lydia tried to redirect. Dad, you're cherry-picking. You're not showing normal stuff like groceries. I pulled another page. Groceries. Let's look. Whole Foods. Average $420 per week. That's $1,680 a month. For 3 people. Before you moved in, Lydia, Susan, and I spent $400 total per month. I pushed forward a stack of pages marked with yellow highlighter. These are the transfers to Derek Palmer. 18 transfers over 6 months. I read them off. 500, 800, 1,200, 600, 1,500. Total $16,400. Who is Derek Palmer, Lydia? Her jaw tightened. That's my business. It became my business when you used my money. Susan turned on her. Who the hell is Derek? He's my boyfriend. He needed help. Help with what I kept my voice even. There are 3 transfers that happened between 2 and 4 in the morning. I pulled out the last page. A sheet of paper with my handwriting columns of numbers neatly aligned. Total deposits 10 months, $80,000. Current balance $147.83. Total spent $79,852.17. Breakdown. Gambling and betting apps $6,200. Transfers to Derek Palmer $16,400. Shopping, clothing, beauty $24,800. Dining and entertainment $12,600. Spa and fitness $8,950. Ski trip plus other travel $10,900. Hours I worked underground $2,080. Value of each hour of my body $38.42. I slid the paper into the center of the table. Every dollar you spent, I earned 950 feet below the ground. Breathing coal dust, damaging my lungs, losing my hearing. This is what my sacrifice bought: ski trips I wasn't invited to. A boyfriend I didn't know existed. Spa days while I worked overtime. Susan started crying. You're making me sound like a monster. I'm reading the numbers. If they sound like something to you, I didn't make that. Lydia stood up, furious. This is ridiculous. Parents have a responsibility to support their children. You're 26 years old, and you're not my daughter. Silence. You're Susan's daughter. I welcomed you into my home. But that doesn't make me an ATM. Susan tried to pivot, desperate now. Okay. We made mistakes. We spent too much. But we can fix this. We'll get jobs, pay you back. You already have a job, Susan. Part-time at the library. Where does your paycheck go? She didn't answer. Into your personal checking account. The one I don't have access to. Funny that. Susan gathered the pages with shaking hands, as if hiding them might erase the truth. Lydia stormed upstairs. The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator I'd paid off 5 years ago. Tomorrow I'd tell them what happens next. Tonight I'd let the numbers speak. Saturday morning came with frost on the windows and clarity in my chest. I woke at 6, showered, put on clean clothes, jeans and a flannel shirt that didn't smell like diesel and sulfur. Downstairs I made coffee. My coffee from the bag I'd bought with my own money 3 days ago and hidden in the back of the cupboard. By 7:30, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a steaming mug, a blank notebook, and a pen. The table was clean. The 47 pages were gone. Susan must have taken them upstairs. In their place, a single sheet of white paper waited, footsteps on the stairs. Susan came down first, then Lydia a few minutes later. Both of them looked wrecked. No makeup, hair unbrushed, eyes swollen from crying or arguing or both. Susan stopped at the bottom of the stairs. "Stuart, can we talk about this like reasonable adults?" "That's why I'm here," I said. They sat across from me. Same seats as last night. Susan folded her hands on the table. "Last night was overwhelming, but we're a family. We can work through this." "We can," I said. "But under new terms." Her face tightened. "Terms, yes. Because what we had before didn't work." I picked up the pen, started writing as I spoke. "First, the situation is worse than the $80,000. Susan's voice was barely audible. "What do you mean, credit card debt? How much?" She hesitated. "I'm not asking as your husband," I said. "I'm asking as someone whose name might be on those accounts." Her answer came out in a whisper. "About 22,000. I didn't react. Just wrote it down. Joint account drained $80,000. Credit card debt $22,000. Total financial damage $102,000. Lydia's voice rose. "We didn't mean for it to get that bad." "Intention doesn't change the facts," I said. I kept writing. Then I turned the notebook toward them. "Here are your options," I said. "Option 1, you stay. But if you stay, you pay $1,100 a month in rent. That includes utilities. You buy your own groceries. You don't touch my accounts. You pay your own debts. And you have 21 days to decide." I paused, let that sink in. "Option 2, you leave. You find your own place. You manage your own finances. You get no further support from me." I tapped the notebook with the pen. "Today is day 1. The clock starts now." Lydia exploded. "Rent, you want us to pay rent in your own house?" "My house," I said calmly. "Paid off 8 years before I met your mother. But we live here. This is our home." "No, you're guests. Guests who overstayed." Susan tried a different angle. "Stuart, you can't charge rent to your own wife. That's not how marriage works." "You're right. In a real marriage, one person doesn't drain $80,000 from the other without asking." She flinched. I continued steady. $1,100 is actually below market rate. A 2-bedroom apartment in Oakdale runs $1,400, plus utilities, plus a deposit. I'm offering you below market rent in a house that's paid off. That's not cruelty. It's a business arrangement. "You're treating us like tenants." Susan's voice cracked. "I'm treating you like adults who need to take responsibility." Lydia turned to Susan. "Mom, can we even afford $1,100? Susan looked panicked. I make $900 a month at the library." "Then Lydia needs to contribute," I said. "Or you both need to find more work, or choose option 2. A memory flashed through my mind, unbidden but sharp. My father, also a coal miner. Dead at 58 from black lung. Our last conversation in a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and defeat. Son family means you lift each other up. But lifting someone up and being bled dry, those are 2 different things. Don't let anyone mistake your kindness for weakness." I blinked, came back to the present. "I've spent my whole life carrying weight," I said. "Underground, I carry roof bolts, drill equipment, the responsibility of keeping my crew safe. I thought carrying a family would be different, lighter, but it wasn't. You didn't treat me like family. You treated me like a resource to extract, like a coal seam." Susan started crying. "That's not fair. I cooked, I cleaned. Did you? When was the last time you made a meal that wasn't takeout I paid for?" She couldn't answer. I pushed the notebook across the table. 21 days, 3 weeks. Stay if you pay. Leave if you can't. The free ride is over. Today is day 1. The clock starts now. Lydia grabbed her phone and bolted upstairs. This is insane. I'm calling Grandma. I didn't stop her. Susan stayed in her seat, staring at the notebook, like it might change if she looked long enough. You're really doing this, she said. I am. What if we can't decide in 21 days? Then I'll decide for you. Susan picked up the notebook and carried it upstairs like it was a death sentence. Maybe it was. I poured myself another cup of coffee from the bag I'd bought with my own money in my own house, on my own terms. For the first time in 10 months, that coffee tasted different. It didn't taste bitter. It tasted like choice. The first 3 days passed, like I was living with polite strangers who wanted something. Day 3 was a Monday. I was making breakfast in the kitchen, eggs, toast, nothing fancy, when Lydia came downstairs. Early for her. She usually slept until 10. She'd put on makeup, mascara, lipstick, even wore actual pants instead of pajamas. The effort was obvious. I cracked the eggs into the skillet, heard them sizzle. My hands moved on autopilot after 38 years of making breakfast before dawn shifts. Morning, Dad. Her voice was bright. Too bright. Sleep okay? Fine, I said. She leaned against the counter, trying to look casual. Listen, about Friday. Maybe we got off on the wrong foot. I flipped the eggs with the spatula, watched the whites set. We didn't start wrong. We just went too far in the wrong direction. She tried to read my face, found nothing. I mean, I could get a job. I was planning to anyway. That's smart, I said. So maybe you could reconsider the rent thing. No. One word. Door closed. She stood there for a moment, mouth open, mascara-lined eyes wide. Then she turned and went back upstairs. I heard her bedroom door close. Not quite a slam, but close. Day 4 was a Tuesday. I came home at 6:30 to a smell I hadn't expected cooking. Real cooking. Susan was in the kitchen actually making dinner. Beef stew, mashed potatoes, green beans. All the things I used to like. The table was set, plates, silverware, cloth, napkins I didn't even know we owned. A candle in the center, not yet lit, but ready. She smiled when she saw me. Rehearsed. Practiced in the mirror, maybe. I made dinner. Your favorites. I thought we could eat together. Like a family. For half a second I almost said yes. Almost sat down. The food smelled good. It had been months since someone cooked a real meal in this house. Then I remembered the 47 pages. I already ate, I said. A lie, I hadn't. But I made enough for, I'm going out to the workshop. I walked past the food, past the set table, past her carefully arranged attempt at normalcy. Out the back door. Ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the workshop with the radio on. Classic rock station. Leonard Skynyrd singing Simple Man. The sandwich tasted better than any stew. Day 5, Wednesday, Susan tried the financial angle. I was sitting at the kitchen table with the newspaper, the classified section, looking at apartment listings out of curiosity. Seeing what $800 a month could get you in Oakdale. Not much. Susan came in dressed up. Blouse, slacks, low heels, interview clothes. Steward, I applied for jobs, full-time positions. I have an interview at the school district. I didn't look up from the paper. Good. That means we're trying. We're making an effort. I'm glad you're taking responsibility. She sat down across from me, folded her hands like she was in a business meeting. So maybe we could adjust the timeline. 21 days is too soon. It's 3 weeks. Enough time to make a decision. But if, Susan... I looked up, then met her eyes. The terms aren't negotiable. She opened her mouth, closed it, got up and left the room. Day 6 was Thursday. Lunch break underground, 950 feet down. The crew room was cramped, smelled like diesel and sweat and old coffee. The ventilation fans hummed overhead. Someone's drill was still running in the distance, a low, grinding sound that never quite stopped. Marcus sat with me on the metal bench. We ate in silence for a while. Bologna sandwiches, thermoses of coffee that had gone lukewarm. Heard around town your house has been eventful, home, Marcus said. Small town, people talk. You doing all right? Better than I have been in months. Marcus nodded slowly, took a sip of coffee, grimaced. Good. Real good stew. He took a bite of his sandwich, chewed, swallowed. Stared at the concrete wall for a moment. My ex-wife did something similar. Not as much money, maybe 10, 12,000, but same game. Made me feel guilty for noticing. How'd you get through it? So I stopped apologizing for having self-respect. I nodded. Slow, deliberate. Let that sink in. You're doing the right thing, Marcus added. Don't let anyone tell you different. Day 7, Friday evening, I hit my limit on shared space. I opened the refrigerator. Cold air washed over me, bright white lights spilling out. The shelves were a mess, half-empty containers, condiment bottles, things I didn't recognize. My Chinese leftovers from Wednesday gone. My milk half empty. It had been 3/4 full this morning. My deli turkey package opened, half the slices missing. I stood there with the fridge door open, cold air spilling out onto my work boots, the compressor humming. The light made everything look sterile. Clinical. Made a decision. Walked out to the workshop. Found the masking tape and a black Sharpie marker in the toolbox. Came back to the kitchen. Tore off strips of tape. Wrote in block letters, Stewart's, do not touch. Stuck them on everything that was mine. The milk carton, the eggs, half a dozen left. The deli turkey, 2 slices of leftover pizza wrapped in foil. The orange juice, even the butter, because why not? Pressed each label down, clear, visible, undeniable. Lydia came downstairs just as I was finishing the last one. Her hair was wet from the shower, wrapped in a towel. What the hell are you doing? Labeling my food, I said. Didn't stop. This is insane, who labels food in their own fridge. Someone who's tired of his food disappearing. She pulled out her phone, took a picture. The camera shutter sound was loud in the quiet kitchen. This is crazy. People need to see this. Go ahead, I said. Late that night, she posted the photo online. I didn't see it, but Susan told me about it the next morning, her voice tight with embarrassment. The caption was something about me labeling food like they were strangers. Toxic family drama. An emoji I didn't understand. She expected sympathy. The comments rolled in. He's right. You're 26, buy your own food. Sounds like you keep stealing his stuff. He's setting boundaries. I maybe respect his things. Your dad is protecting what's his. That's called self-respect. If my kid was eating my food without asking, I'd do the same. You're the problem here, not him. Lydia deleted the post within 2 hours. That weekend I noticed more whispering. Conversations that stopped when I entered a room. Susan made 3 hushed phone calls behind closed doors. I heard her voice through the wall of my bedroom, urgent and low, but couldn't make out the words. Once I heard her say, Mom, and please, and he won't listen. By Monday morning, reinforcements would arrive. I didn't know it yet, but the diplomacy phase was over. They were calling in someone who believed she could change my mind. Day 8 brought a Lincoln Continental into my driveway and trouble to my front door. I pulled in at 5:45 after my shift, still covered in coal dust, and there it was. Silver. Polished. A 2015 model that probably cost more than I made in 6 months underground. I knew that car. Dorothy Hayes, Susan's mother. I'd met her twice before, once at the wedding, once at Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Both times she'd looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. So they'd called in reinforcements. I sat in my truck for a minute, engine ticking as it cooled. Prepared myself. When I walked in, all 3 of them were arranged in the living room, like they'd rehearsed it. Dorothy sat in my reading chair, the one by the window, the one I'd had for 15 years. Susan was on the couch. Lydia perched on the arm, smug smile on her face. Dorothy stood when I entered. Formal, deliberate. "Stuart, we need to have a conversation." I set my lunchbox on the hallway table. "Dorothy, didn't expect you. I came as soon as I heard what was happening. My daughter called me in tears. I had to come." I didn't sit. Stayed near the doorway. Didn't let them box me in. "Susan tells me you've made some unilateral decisions about finances." "I made decisions about my finances," I said. "She's your wife, Stuart. In a marriage, money is shared. To shared means both people have a say. That's not what happened here." Dorothy adjusted her glasses, looked me up and down, taking in the coal dust on my jacket, the dirt under my nails, the way my work boots left faint prints on the hardwood. Susan's father was a real provider. He never questioned what his wife needed. Never made her feel small for spending money. She paused. Let that sink in. Of course he was an executive, regional manager, not manual labor. The insult landed exactly as she meant it. Coal miner equals lesser man. Blue collar equals not good enough. My jaw tightened, but I stayed silent. Dorothy continued, voice smooth as silk over broken glass. "Perhaps you don't understand how families at a certain level operate. Women have needs, social obligations to maintain. Appearances matter. I worked 38 years underground, so my wife could go to the spa." I asked, "Don't be dramatic. Susan deserves small luxuries. $80,000 isn't small." Dorothy waved a hand, dismissive. "Numbers can be manipulated. I'm sure it's not as much as all that." Susan jumped in her lines, clearly rehearsed. "Stuart, with Mom here, maybe we can all sit down calmly and—" "No." Dorothy's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me. No, I'm not negotiating. The terms remain." Dorothy laughed, cold, sharp. "You're being unreasonable, stubborn, just like Susan said." "Susan's entitled to her opinion." I walked past them, went upstairs to my bedroom, closed the door. The next evening, Tuesday, I stayed late in the workshop. Avoided going inside. It was warmer than usual for October, almost 60 degrees, so I'd left the workshop window open a crack. That's when I heard them, voices drifting from the house. The kitchen window was open too. Dorothy and Susan talking. They didn't know I could hear every word. "Listen to me carefully, Susan." Dorothy's voice clear and commanding. "Men like Stuart are controllers. They use money as power." But he showed me the statements. Everything was right there. "It doesn't matter. Don't let him see any more bills. Keep your cards separate. Now he'll ask. Then you tell him you've taken care of it. Men get emotional about numbers. Your father never knew about my casino trips. What he didn't know couldn't hurt him. And Mom, that's how you survive in a marriage, sweetheart. You manage information." I stood frozen in the workshop, every word crystal clear. I felt disappointed, but not surprised. So this was where Susan learned it. Wednesday, day 10, they tried a group intervention. I came home and all three of them were waiting. Again. Dorothy spoke first. "Stuart, sit down. We're settling this today." "There's nothing to settle. You have 11 days left to decide." "This rent idea is absurd. Susan is your wife. Wives don't pay rent. And wives don't steal either, yet here we are." Dorothy sucked in a sharp breath. "How dare you call my daughter a thief?" "What would you call taking $80,000 without permission?" "Marriage, I call it marriage." I looked at Susan. "Is that what you think?" "That marriage means I work and you spend without limits." She looked away, couldn't meet my eyes. I turned back to Dorothy. "You're welcome to stay as a guest, but you don't get to make decisions in my house. Your house." Dorothy's voice rose. "Susan lives here, that makes it her house. My name's on the deed, my mortgage is paid off, my house." Dorothy turned to Susan's stage, whispering loud enough for me to hear. "See, I told you. He's a controller. They always pull this." I walked out to the workshop. Spent the evening installing a deadbolt on the inside of my bedroom door. Boundaries needed locks now. That night I lay in bed and thought about Dorothy's husband, Susan's father, dead 5 years ago. Susan had mentioned once that he'd been very stressed toward the end. Heart attack at 62, the same age I was now. I wondered if he'd known about those casino trips. I wondered if the stress of not knowing the truth had contributed to his death. I wouldn't spend my life wondering. I knew the numbers now. That clarity might just save my life. Day 11, 950 feet underground. That's when my body decided to remind me it wasn't made of coal. It was 10:30 in the morning. I was operating the continuous miner, a machine that weighed 20 tons and chewed coal from the wall like a mechanical monster. Set the machine, advance, cut, retreat, repeat. I'd done it 10,000 times over 38 years. The noise was constant. 95 decibels. You wore hearing protection or you went deaf. The air was thick, 88 degrees, humid, dusty, even with the ventilation fans running. I had my respirator on, breathing filtered air that tasted like rubber and metal. Then my chest tightened. Not a sharp pain. Pressure. Like someone had wrapped a vise around my ribs and was turning the handle. My left arm went numb. I couldn't catch my breath, and down here that was saying something. The edges of my vision blurred. My mind went straight to one place: heart attack. Just like Susan's father. I'm 62. Black lung in my chest. This is it. My hand slipped from the control panel. The machine ground to a stop. Marcus was working 20 feet away. He noticed immediately. "Stu," he started toward me. "Stu." I leaned against the machine, one hand pressed to my chest. The respirator fogged with my rapid breathing. Marcus grabbed the radio. "Surface, this is Lewis. Need a medic to Section 7B. Man down." They got me to the surface. Marcus and Ray half carried me to the cage, the elevator that hauled us up and down the shaft. 950 feet. 3 minutes that felt like 30. My vision spun, my heart hammered. When we reached the top, the October sun hit my eyes. Too bright. Overwhelming. The mine medic was waiting with his kit. "Mr. Donnelly, where's your pain?" "A chest, left arm, can't breathe." He strapped the blood pressure cuff on my arm, pumped it up, watched the gauge. "Yeah, 165 over 98. That's high." Pulse oximeter on my finger. 96% oxygen. That's acceptable, but lower than I'd like on the surface. Heart rate monitor. 118 beats per minute. Elevated. Any cardiac history? My father died at 58. Heart attack. "We need to get you to the ER now." Marcus drove me to Oakdale General. I didn't argue. The tightness in my chest had eased, but the fear hadn't. The ER was fluorescent bright and smelled like disinfectant. They took me straight back. A nurse hooked me up to monitors, wires everywhere, beeping machines. The doctor was a woman in her 50s, gray hair, pulled back reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. Dr. Reynolds, her badge said. "Mr. Donnelly, we're going to run an EKG, draw blood to check for troponin. That's a marker for heart damage, and keep you under observation for a few hours." "How long?" "On 3 hours minimum, if anything looks concerning, longer." The EKG took 10 minutes. 12 leads stuck to my chest. The machine printed out a long strip of paper with jagged lines. Blood draw. 2 vials. Then waiting. Marcus sat in the chair beside the bed. Called the mine. Told them you're out for the rest of the week. "I don't need a week." "Doctor's orders, Stu. You heard her." 3 hours passed. Dr. Reynolds came back with a clipboard. "Your EKG is normal. Troponin levels are negative. No signs of heart attack." Relief flooded through me. "However," she continued, "your blood pressure is dangerously high. 165 over 98 is pre-hypertensive crisis territory. Your stress response is significantly elevated. What I'm seeing is consistent with a severe anxiety attack. I've never had anxiety." You've never had someone drain your bank account before either, Marcus muttered. Dr. Reynolds looked at me over her glasses. Mr. Donnelly, anxiety attacks and heart attacks share almost identical symptoms. Chest pain, arm numbness, shortness of breath. Your body was screaming at you. And at 62, with your work history and family cardiac history, we take this very seriously. She wrote on her prescription pad. I'm prescribing blood pressure medication. Take it daily. I'm also referring you to a cardiologist for a stress test within 2 weeks. And I'm ordering you to take at least 2 days off work. Your body needs rest. What if it happens again? If it happens again, you call 911 immediately. Don't wait. Don't drive yourself. Call. She paused at the door. And Mr. Donnelly. Whatever's causing this level of stress in your life, you need to fix it. Because next time it might not be anxiety. It might be the real thing. Marcus drove me home. It was nearly 6 o'clock. The sun was setting. When I walked inside, Lydia was in the living room. She looked up, saw my face. I must have looked terrible, pale, hollow, the hospital wristband still on. Hada. Her voice changed. What happened? Where were you? Hospital. I'm fine. Then you are not fine. You were at the hospital for what? I sat down on the couch, more like collapsed. Thought I was having a heart attack. Wasn't, just stress. She sat next to me, closer than she'd been in weeks. Dad, you're scaring me. Are you okay? Did they say you're okay? For a moment I saw her differently. Not the 26-year-old who'd spent $16,000 of my money on her boyfriend, but the 8-year-old I'd met the day I married Susan. The little girl who'd asked to go fishing with Uncle Stuart. The kid who'd said, "When I grow up, I want to be strong like you." She started crying. It looked real. Dad, please, I don't want to lose you. Daddy. She hadn't called me that in years. My hand moved toward my wallet. Instinct. The urge to fix things. To provide. To protect. Then the image flashed in my mind. 47 pages spread across the kitchen table. The numbers. $80,000. $16,400 to Derek Palmer. Transfers at 2:47 in the morning. The social media post. The photo of my labeled food in the fridge. The mocking caption. My hand stopped, pulled back. I'm okay, Lydia, thank you for asking. I'm scared, she said. About everything. The 21 days. Finding a place. How we'll afford. You should have been scared 10 months ago, before the first transfer to Derek. Her face changed. She realized I wasn't going to soften. My phone rang. Marcus. Oh, Stu just heard. Tommy got hurt. Section 5 tunnel. Roof bolt failed. Rock fell on his leg. They're airlifting him to Pittsburgh. How bad? Broken femur. Maybe worse. He's only 54, Stu. Been on our crew 20 years. Jesus. Well, that could have been any of us in that tunnel today. Could have been you this morning. I hung up, sat in silence. Tommy was 54, broken leg. Maybe career ending. 20 years in the mine. What did he have to show for it? A body that only worked when it felt like it. Maybe a pension if he made it to 62. I was 62. Gave 38 years. Black lung in my chest. Hearing aids in my ears. Scars on my hands. And today, a hospital wristband. Dr. Reynolds' words echoed. Next time it might be the real thing. All that sacrifice. For what? So my wife could go to spas. So my stepdaughter could fund her gambling boyfriend. That night, I didn't install any new locks. I didn't write any new terms. I just sat in the workshop until midnight sanding a piece of pine that didn't need sanding. My hands knew what to do when my mind couldn't settle. Tommy would survive his injury. I'd survived mine. But we'd both been reminded time isn't infinite. And I wouldn't spend what I had left being a coal seam for someone to mine. Day 12. But really it was the first day I'd spent at home in years that wasn't a holiday or a snowstorm. Friday, day 11. I'd stayed home, Doctor's orders. I'd taken the blood pressure medication Dr. Reynolds prescribed, sat on the porch with coffee and let my body rest. Susan and Lydia had avoided me. The house was quiet. I'd needed that quiet. By Saturday morning, I felt steady, clear-headed. The tightness in my chest was gone. My hands no longer shook. 10 days gone, 11 to go. The math was simple. The conversations weren't. It was 9 o'clock Saturday morning. I was in the workshop sorting tools. Organizing things gave my hands something to do when my mind couldn't settle. The door opened. Susan stood there. No makeup. An old sweatshirt I'd seen her wear for yard work. She looked 60, not 52. "Stuart, please, can we talk?" I set down the wrench, turned to face her. "All right." She stepped inside, closed the door behind her. "Private conversation." Her voice was hoarse. "I can't take it anymore. Dorothy left this morning. She called me weak. Said I should have fought harder." "Fought for what?" "For us. This marriage. For staying." "You want to stay?" "I don't want to be thrown out like trash. You're being cruel, Stuart." I took a breath. This was the conversation we needed to have. "Susan, sit down." She sat on the workshop stool. I stayed standing. Not to dominate, to prepare. I want to be very clear about something," I said. "I'm not throwing anyone out. I'm ending a financial arrangement that didn't work." "It's the same thing." "No, it's not." I spoke slowly, deliberately. "Cruelty is draining someone else's paycheck for 10 months without asking. Cruelty is lying about where the money went every time they asked. Cruelty is letting your daughter's boyfriend live in someone else's house while they work 50 hours a week underground and never telling them." Her face went white. "Live in your... What are you talking about?" I kept going. "Cruelty is forging documents, gambling away someone else's retirement, mocking them on social media." "I didn't do any of that. You did," she whispered. "I never meant to." Intention doesn't change impact. I grabbed my notebook, started writing as I spoke. "Let me show you what I'm actually proposing." I wrote out the numbers. Actual monthly costs if you stay here. Rent at market rate $1,400. Utilities, heat, electric, water, internet $280. Insurance and property tax, your share $150. Groceries $400. Total actual cost $2,230 per month. What I'm asking, $1,100 per month. What you save by staying $1,130 per month. I pushed the paper toward her. I'm asking for less than half the actual cost. That's not cruelty. That's mercy. She stared at the numbers. "But we don't have 1,100. Then that's your problem to solve. Get a full-time job, put Lydia to work, cut expenses, or find somewhere else. You're punishing us for being family." This was the moment. Family doesn't steal from each other, Susan. Family doesn't lie, hide, and manipulate. If what you and Lydia did isn't family behavior, it's exploitation. And I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself. My voice softened, but stayed firm. The Thursday I thought I was having a heart attack. Underground, 950 feet down. They took me to the ER, ran tests, kept me for 3 hours. Her face went pale. You went to the hospital. It was an anxiety attack. Severe one. But the doctor said at 62, with my family history, the next one could be cardiac. She told me to fix whatever's causing the stress or it'll kill me. My father died at 58 from black lung. I'm 62. Every day I go down there could be my last. And I realized I don't want to spend what I have left being taken advantage of. That's not cruelty. That's self-preservation. She was crying. Real tears this time. Not manipulation, exhaustion. I don't know how to fix this. I gave you the terms. Whether you meet them is up to you. And if we can't, then you leave and we both move on. Just like that. After everything, After everything, yes. Because of everything. She left the workshop, utterly defeated. I sat for a moment. Then I remembered something. 2 o'clock that afternoon, I was sitting at the small desk in my bedroom. The computer hummed. Rain tapped against the window. A thought had hit me during lunch. The doorbell camera. I'd installed it months ago, motion-activated saves to the cloud. When was the last time I'd checked the footage? April, May. I opened the app. Months of archived videos stared back at me. I decided to start with October. Work backward. October footage was normal. Mail carrier. Me coming and going. September. I scrolled through the days. September 18th, 10:17 in the morning. Motion detected. The video loaded. A young man, late 20s, motorcycle helmet tucked under his arm, walking in my front door. The timestamp said 10:17. I'd been at work. My heart rate spiked. I scrolled forward. September 20th, 11:42 a.m. Same man, walking in. September 24th, 1:23 p.m. Same man, walking in. September 27th, 10:55 a.m. Same man, walking in. A pattern emerged. Weekdays. Between 10 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, when I was underground. I checked August. Same pattern, 4 or 5 visits a week. July, same. June. The first appearance was June 12th, 6 solid months. Derek Palmer had been entering my house while I was at work. My hands shook. Not from fear, from cold fury. I clicked on one more video. September 18th, 3:45 p.m., Derek leaving. The camera caught his face clearly. Late 20s, scruffy beard, leather jacket, cocky expression. Lydia kissed him goodbye at the door. Right there in the frame. I downloaded 20 videos, saved them to a USB drive, labeled it Evidence, leaned back, stared at the screen. He'd practically been living here. Not visiting, living, while I paid the electric, the water, the heat, the groceries. While I worked underground, he was in my house, with my wife's daughter, using my internet, eating my food, and no one told me. I saved those videos to 2 USB drives, one for me, one in case I needed a lawyer. But sitting there in the darkening room, rain pattering on the window, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger requires surprise. And after everything I'd learned in these 12 days, I was well past surprise. I was just done with all of it. Week 3, the masks came off completely. Day 15. Tuesday morning, 5:30. I was making coffee in the kitchen when Susan appeared in the doorway. She hadn't slept that much was obvious. Dark circles under her eyes like bruises, hair uncombed falling loose around her shoulders, an old coffee stain on her sweatshirt. Her hands trembled as she gripped the doorframe. No preamble, just sharp. "You're going to regret this, Stuart." I poured my coffee into the thermos I'd used for 38 years. Measured, calm. Maybe. But I regret the last 10 months more. When you're alone in this big house eating dinner by yourself, you'll wish. "I've been eating alone for months, Susan. You just didn't notice." That afternoon, Lydia tried a different approach. She cornered me in the living room as I was heading to the workshop. Arms crossed. Defiant. She was pacing 3 steps one way, pivot 3 steps back. Her voice rising with each sentence. "You know what, fine. We'll leave. And everyone will know what you did." I stopped. Watched her. Waited. What did I do? Abandoned your family, kicked us out over money. Feel free to tell that story. But you should probably mention the $80,000 part too. No one cares about that, then you have nothing to worry about. She opened her mouth, closed it, stormed upstairs. Day 16. Wednesday. Lunch break at the mine on the surface. The sun was weak through November clouds. I was sitting on a bench outside the equipment shed when my phone rang. Unknown number. Stuart Donnelly. Mr. Donnelly, this is Capital One Security. We're calling about suspicious activity on your account. I tensed, set down my sandwich. What activity? A request to add an authorized user, Susan Donnelly, and a request to increase your credit limit from $5,000 to $15,000. The request came in this morning at 9:43 a.m. My jaw tightened. Deny it. Remove her as an authorized user completely. Sir, she's your wife. She has legal rights to request. Remove her, now. And freeze any future requests from her phone number. A pause. Professional. Understood, sir. We'll process that immediately. Is there anything else we can help you with today? No, thank you. I hung up. Marcus was sitting nearby finishing his lunch. Bologna sandwich. Same thing he'd eaten for 20 years. Trouble. They tried to open more credit under my name. After everything, they're desperate. Desperate people do reckless things. Marcus shook his head. Damn. That evening, I came home. The kitchen lights were harsh, fluorescent, unforgiving. Dishes in the sink from lunch plates stacked carelessly. Susan was standing by the counter phone in her hand. When she saw me, her face changed. Caught. Her makeup was smudged under one eye. Nail polish chipped on 3 fingers. She looked like she was coming apart at the seams. The credit card company called you. They did. She switched to defiance. Raised her chin. We need that credit. We have expenses. Then use your credit. Mine's maxed out. Sounds like a pattern. She yelled. Actually yelled. Her voice echoed off the tile. You're sabotaging us, making it impossible on purpose. I kept my voice quiet. Steady. No. I'm just not subsidizing you anymore. Day 17, Thursday. I was in the hallway heading upstairs to change out of my work clothes when I heard Lydia on the phone in the living room. Her voice carried through the open door. Vanessa, hey, can I crash at your place for a few days? Things here are... A pause. Then Vanessa's voice tinny through the speaker. I'm actually really busy right now. Maybe ask someone else. Because we were supposed to go to that concert next week. Oh, about that. I can't make it. Sorry. What, wait, can't make it or don't want to go with me? Silence. Then, look, Lydia. I just think maybe we need some space. Things are really complicated right now. Tuppers, we've been friends for 3 years. Yeah, I'll text you sometime. The call ended. I heard Lydia's breathing, fast, shallow. Then she dialed again. Ashley, it's me. Listen, can I? Another rejection. Same excuse. Really busy right now. Sorry. She tried Brittany. Dealing with some personal stuff, can't hang out. Then Madison. Didn't even answer. A text came through. I heard the notification sound. Lydia read it aloud, voice breaking. Sorry, can't talk right now. 4 best friends. All suddenly unavailable. I heard her scrolling through her phone, checking social media. A small broken sound. She'd been unfollowed. Ghosted online too. Day 18, Friday. Lydia found me in the workshop. I was sanding the bookshelf I'd been working on for weeks. Nearly finished now, 6 shelves, solid walnut joints tight. Sawdust covered the floor. The air smelled like pine resin and mineral spirits. She stood in the doorway. Mascara running down both cheeks. Hair in a messy bun. She hadn't showered. Are you happy? Her voice was sharp, bitter. You turned everyone against me. I didn't stop sanding. The rhythm helped me think. I haven't talked to your friends. Then why is everyone avoiding me? Maybe they were never your friends. Maybe they just liked what you could afford to pay for. That's not true. I finally looked up, set down the sandpaper. When was the last time you did something that didn't cost money? Coffee at their place, A walk in the park? Or was it always fancy brunch, shopping trips, spa days? Her face fell. The anger drained out of her like water from a broken cup. The money ran out, Lydia, and apparently so did they. She started crying. Real tears. Not manipulation. Recognition. I thought Vanessa was my best friend. Ma, best friends don't disappear when your credit card maxes out. I don't have anyone. You have your mother, and you have yourself. That'll have to be enough. That afternoon, I heard sounds upstairs. Footsteps. Dragging. The scrape of cardboard on hardwood. The metallic screech of packing tape being pulled from a dispenser. I went up to check. Lydia's bedroom door was open. Empty cardboard boxes stacked against the wall, 6 or 7 of them different sizes. Labels in her handwriting on some clothes. Shoes. Makeup. She was folding clothes, packing them carefully into a duffel bag. Susan was in the background, wrapping picture frames in newspaper. Packing. Lydia didn't look at me, kept folding. We don't have the money to stay. You know that. I know. You won. This wasn't about winning. Then what was it about? Survival. That night I heard more boxes being moved. Drawers opening and closing. The sound of tape. Susan's voice muffled, giving instructions. Lydia's footsteps back and forth across the ceiling. I checked Facebook Marketplace on my phone out of curiosity. There it was. The Peloton bike. Posted an hour ago. $1,800, like new. Must sell ASAP. The designer chair. $800, still in plastic. The 70-inch TV. $1,200, no scratches. They were liquidating. 3 days left. The countdown had become real. Day 19. A certified letter sits in my hand. Inside is something that will force me to decide whether to call the police or not. But before I reveal what Susan did, comment 1. If you think I should report it immediately. 2. If you think I should confront her first. Or 3. If you think I should stay silent for the sake of family. Let me know you're still here with that number. Please note this story contains details constructed to illustrate situations. If you feel uncomfortable, you can turn off the video right now. Day 19. The sound of packing tape echoed through rooms about to fall silent. It was Saturday, 10 o'clock in the morning. I'd gone out to buy trash bags, heavy-duty contractor grade, the kind that wouldn't rip when you stuffed them full. When I came back, the house had transformed. Cardboard boxes everywhere. Stacked in the hallway. Lining the living room wall. Brown, identical, anonymous. Some were sealed with tape. Others sat open, half filled with clothes, books, picture frames wrapped in newspaper. The Peloton bike was gone. Sold yesterday for $1,700. A stranger had come with a pickup truck and hauled it away while I was at the mine. The space where it had sat for months, gathering dust, mocking me every time I walked past, was just empty floor now. Clean rectangle on the carpet where the bike had blocked the sun. Susan and Lydia were upstairs. I could hear their voices, muffled, discussing what to keep, what to sell, what to leave behind. I set the trash bags on the kitchen counter. Walked through the living room. The designer chair was gone too. The 70-inch TV still mounted on the wall, but there was a note taped to the screen, sold, pickup, Sunday, 3 p.m. 12:30. I was making lunch turkey sandwich, nothing fancy, when I heard the doorbell. Mail carrier, certified letter, required signature. The return address made my stomach drop. Oakdale Mortgage Services. I hadn't had a mortgage in 8 years. I signed for it. Closed the door. Stood in the hallway holding the envelope. Upstairs, Susan laughed at something Lydia said. The sound felt wrong, out of place. I opened the envelope. Cash out refinance application. My name at the top. Property address correct. Loan amount requested $65,000. I scanned down to the signature line. Stuart Donnelly. But I'd never signed it. The handwriting was close. Someone had practiced. But the capital S was wrong too, looped. The double L in Donnelly slanted the wrong direction. Forged. Application date October 3rd, right in the middle of the 21-day countdown. They'd tried to refinance my house. The house I'd spent 30 years paying off, borrowed against it without telling me. $65,000 in cash. If the mortgage company hadn't flagged it for verification, if they'd approved it based on the forged signature, I'd have woken up one day owing $65,000 on a house that was supposed to be mine. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. I thought they would be. I was calm, cold, clear. 1:15. I called Brian Foster, the lawyer whose card Marcus had given me 3 weeks ago. I'd put it in my wallet and forgotten about it until now. He answered on the second ring. Foster and Associates. Why, Mr. Foster, this is Stuart Donnelly. I need legal advice. Go ahead, I told him. The whole thing. The $80,000. The 21-day ultimatum. And now this, the refinance application, the forged signature, the attempt to saddle me with debt I'd never agreed to. He was quiet for a moment. Then, Mr. Donnelly, what you're describing is mortgage fraud. That's a felony. Grand larceny. Forgery of a legal document. We're talking 2 to 7 years in prison if prosecuted. I figured. My advice: file a police report. Today. Even if you don't want to press charges, you need that report on record. It protects you. If they try anything else, if they use your name, your credit, your identity, you have documentation that you reported it. And if I do want to press charges, then you have grounds, strong grounds. But that's your call, not mine. I thought about that. I don't want revenge. I just want them gone. Then file the report. Keep the evidence. Let them know you have it. Sometimes that's enough. Thank you, Mr. Foster. Good luck, Mr. Donnelly. I hung up, looked at the letter again. $65,000. 2 o'clock. I went upstairs. Susan was in the bedroom folding clothes into a suitcase. She looked up when I walked in, saw my face, saw the letter in my hand. Her face drained of color. White. Bloodless. Stuart, I held up the letter. Cash out refinance. $65,000. My signature. Except I never signed it. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at the floor. Who did it, you or Lydia? Her voice was barely audible. We were desperate. We needed the money to stay, to pay the rent you wanted, to... Who did it? I did. Silence. It's our house, Stuart. I was just accessing our equity. It's my house. My name on the deed. My mortgage I paid off. And you tried to steal $65,000 by forging my signature on a legal document. I wasn't stealing, You were committing mortgage fraud. That's a felony, Susan. 2 to 7 years in prison. She sat down on the bed, hard, like her legs had given out. I talked to a lawyer an hour ago, I said. He told me to file a police report, create a record, protect myself. Her eyes went wide. You're going to have me arrested. I'm going to file a report. Whether I press charges is up to me. Stuart, please. I kept my voice level, calm. I'm not pressing charges. Not because you don't deserve it, but because I don't want the trouble. I don't want to spend the next year in courtrooms. I don't want to testify. I don't want any more of my life tied to yours. She started crying. Real tears, relief and shame mixed together. But hear me clearly, I said. If you're not gone by Monday morning, if you ever touch my name again, credit, mortgage, anything, I won't hold back. I'll prosecute. I'll use every piece of evidence I have. The bank statements, the doorbell footage. This. I held up the letter. Do you understand? She nodded. Couldn't speak. I left the bedroom. Went back downstairs. Called the Oakdale Police non-emergency line. Filed a report. Mortgage fraud attempt. Forged signature. They took my information. Said an officer would follow up Monday. I had enough evidence to destroy them legally. The bank statements showing $80,000 drained over 10 months. The The doorbell camera footage of Derek Palmer entering my house dozens of times. The credit card fraud attempt from Wednesday. And now this documentary proof of forgery. I could have buried them. But sitting in the workshop that night, hearing them talk through the wall, Susan's voice low and tired, Lydia's responses short and bitter, I realized something. Revenge wouldn't get back 38 years underground. Revenge wouldn't restore the hearing I'd lost to 95 decibel machinery. Revenge wouldn't undo the black lung in my chest, or the scars on my hands. Revenge is for people who still care enough to fight. I just wanted my house back. Monday, day 21. The deadline was no longer a threat. It was a release. I woke at 5:30, same as every workday, even though I'd taken the day off. Habit. 38 years of 5:30 alarms don't disappear overnight. Lay in bed listening, waiting. At 6:15, I heard the truck. A U-Haul. Diesel engine rumbling as it backed into the driveway. The beep, beep, beep of the reverse alarm. Then silence. Doors opening. Voices. Muffled. Tired. I got up, made coffee, stood at the kitchen window watching. Susan and Lydia were already loading. Early start. They'd probably been up since 4, packing the last boxes, taping down the lids, labeling them in Sharpie. At 8:30, another car pulled in. Dorothy's silver Cadillac. She got out, looked at my Silverado parked in its usual spot, and her face twisted into something contemptuous. She didn't knock, just walked straight to the truck and started helping. I went out to the workshop. The bookshelf was nearly finished. 6 shelves, walnut joints tight. I'd been working on it for 3 months, longer than I'd planned. But these past 3 weeks, every time I needed to think, I'd come out here and sand. The repetition helped. The sawdust and the smell of wood and the simple physical act of making something smooth. I could see the driveway through the window. Watch them load. Boxes, suitcases, garbage bags stuffed with clothes. The stand mixer Susan had bought 2 years ago, $400, used maybe twice. Picture frames, a lamp, the cheap bookshelf from Lydia's room that had never been assembled right, always leaning slightly left. They worked in silence. No talking. Just the sound of cardboard scraping against metal, the thud of boxes being stacked, the occasional grunt of effort. Dorothy did most of the heavy lifting. Susan looked exhausted, pale, hollowed out. Lydia kept her head down, arms full of hangers and dresses still on them, loading them into the back of the truck like she was sleepwalking. They left behind the furniture I'd had before Susan moved in. The couch I'd bought secondhand in 1998. The kitchen table with the wobbly leg. The dresser in the bedroom with the drawer that stuck. The chipped dishes in the cabinet, plain, white, serviceable, nothing fancy. At 2 o'clock, I made a sandwich. Turkey and mustard. Ate it standing at the workbench, still watching. By 2:45, the truck was loaded. Full. They'd closed the back door, secured it with a padlock. The 3 of them stood in the driveway talking. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the gestures. Dorothy pointing at the house. Susan shaking her head. Lydia with her arms crossed, looking at the ground. Then Susan turned, walked toward the workshop. I set down the sandpaper, wiped my hands on my jeans. Waited. She knocked. 3 times. Soft. I opened the door. She stood there in a gray hoodie and jeans. No makeup. Hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked 60, maybe older. "We're leaving," she said. "I know." A long pause. She looked past me into the workshop, at the bookshelf. The tools hung on pegboard. The neat stacks of wood scraps I saved because you never knew when you'd need a piece. "It didn't have to end this way," she said. "It didn't have to start this way either." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. "I'm sorry," she said. "For the lies. For everything." I believed she was sorry. Sorry that it had come to this. Sorry that she'd lost. Sorry that she was 52 years old and moving into a one-bedroom apartment in the bad part of town with her daughter and whatever they could fit in a U-Haul truck. But I didn't think she was sorry for what she'd done. Just sorry she'd been caught. Apologies don't change what happened, I said. She nodded, looked down at her hands. Chipped nail polish, dry skin, hands that used to be soft. You look lighter, she said. I thought about that. I am. I hope you find what you're looking for. I already found it. She waited for me to explain. I didn't. She turned to go, stopped, looked back. If you ever... No. One word. Final. She understood, walked back to the truck, climbed into the passenger seat. Dorothy was driving. Lydia sat between them, squeezed into the middle, staring straight ahead through the windshield. The engine started. Loud. The truck was overloaded suspension, sagging tires, bulging. It lurched forward. Stopped. Dorothy adjusted something. Then it rolled. Down the driveway, onto the street. Left turn. Gone. I stood in the doorway of the workshop. Watched until I couldn't see it anymore. Listened until I couldn't hear it anymore. Then I walked back into the house. It felt different. Bigger. Emptier. But not in a bad way. In a way that made me notice the space, the volume of air, the light coming through the windows without anything blocking it. I walked through the rooms, the living room. The couch was still there, my couch, the one I'd bought 26 years ago, before Susan, before Lydia, before any of this. The coffee table I'd built in this same workshop. The bookshelf against the wall with my books. Westerns, mostly Louis L'Amour and Larry McMurtry. The TV was gone. Just the empty wall mount and the rectangle of darker paint where it had hung. The kitchen. My dishes in the cabinet. My coffee maker on the counter. The labels I'd put on the food in the refrigerator, Stewart's, do not touch, still there. I peeled them off, threw them in the trash, upstairs. Lydia's room. Empty. Marks on the wall where posters had been taped. Dust outlines where the dresser and the bed had stood. The closet door open, showing bare hangers and nothing else. Susan's closet. Also empty. Wire hangers left behind. A shoebox on the top shelf. I pulled it down. Opened it. Photos. Old ones. Susan and her first husband. Susan and Lydia as a baby. I closed the box. Put it by the curb with the trash. I sat down in the living room. My chair. The one by the window. The one Dorothy had sat in 3 weeks ago, trying to make me feel small. I sat there for a long time, just breathing. No voices, no footsteps upstairs, no TV blaring in the background, no arguments in the kitchen, no one asking me for money, for help, for anything. Just the old furnace kicking on. The hum of the refrigerator. The clock ticking on the wall, the same clock that had been there when I bought this house in 2001. I'd spent 3 weeks forcing this moment to happen. 3 weeks of boundary setting and confrontations and sleepless nights listening to them plot and scheme through the walls. Now that it was here, I didn't feel triumphant. Didn't feel victorious. I felt open, like someone had thrown open the windows of a house that had been sealed too long. The air was cold. November air, sharp, but clean. For the first time in 18 months, I could breathe. The first night alone, I unlocked the bedroom door. Then realized I'd locked it out of habit, not necessity. No one was going to try the handle at 3 in the morning. No one was going to rifle through my wallet while I slept. No one was here at all. I left the door unlocked. Open even, just a crack. Let the air from the rest of the house flow through. Tuesday morning, day 22. I woke at 5:30, still couldn't break the habit. But instead of rushing to make coffee and get out the door, I sat at the kitchen table and watched the sun come up. Slow, orange light filtering through the bare trees in the backyard. I made breakfast, real breakfast. Bacon, eggs, toast. The whole house filled with the smell of bacon grease, sharp, salty, rich. Susan had hated that smell, said it lingered for days, so I'd stopped cooking it. Now I cooked a whole pound, ate it at the table, reading yesterday's newspaper, not hurrying. After breakfast, I opened the refrigerator. The labels were still there, the ones I'd written in Sharpie 3 weeks ago. Stewart's, do not touch. I peeled them off. One by one, balled them up, threw them in the trash. I didn't need boundaries anymore. The whole house was mine. Wednesday I called in sick to the mine. First time in 2 years. Spent the day in the workshop finishing the bookshelf. Sanded it smooth. Applied 3 coats of polyurethane. Let each coat dry. Sanded again between coats. By evening it was done. 6 shelves. Walnut. Tight joints. Smooth finish that caught the light. I stood back and looked at it. Felt something close to pride. Not the loud kind. Just the quiet knowledge that I'd made something good with my own hands. Thursday, Marcus called. You working Saturday? No, day off. I want to go fishing Millbrook Reservoir. Haven't been out there since September. I thought about it. Yeah, I'd like that. Saturday morning, 6 o'clock, I met Marcus at the reservoir. Cold, 40 degrees. Our breath misted in the air. We set up on the East Bank rods in the water thermoses of coffee, not talking much. After an hour, Marcus said, You look different. I'm different, how? Lighter. You smiled twice this morning. I haven't seen you smile in, hell, I don't know. Months. I thought about that. Reeled in my line, cast again. I didn't realize how heavy it was until I put it down. Marcus nodded. Understood without me having to explain. We fished until noon. Caught 3 bass and a catfish. Threw them all back. It wasn't about the fish. Sunday, I invited Marcus over for dinner. First time I'd had anyone in the house since Susan left. We grilled steaks on the back porch. Drank beer, sat in the living room. My couch, my coffee table, my bookshelf with my books. Place feels different, Marcus said. It is different. You gonna stay here or sell it? Stay. It's mine. Paid for. Why would I leave? Marcus raised his beer. To staying. I clinked bottles with him. To staying. Monday, day 28. Exactly 1 week since they'd left. I was in the workshop planning a piece of oak for a side table I'd been thinking about when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Hello. Silence, then Stuart, Susan's voice. But different. Smaller. Quieter. I'd never heard her sound like this. What do you want, Susan? We need help. I set down the plane. Wiped my hands on my jeans. I told you. We're done. I know. I know you did. But Stuart, we're in a bad place. The apartment we found, it's 2 bedrooms, but we're splitting it 3 ways. Me, Lydia, and my mother. Dorothy's living with you. She lost her house. Casino debts. The bank foreclosed. She has nowhere else to go. I almost laughed. Almost. Sounds like a pattern. Don't. Her voice broke. Please don't. I waited. The landlord wants $2,000 for the deposit. We have $900. We're short. And Lydia's job doesn't start for another 2 weeks. I'm trying to get more hours at the library, but they're cutting back and… Susan, she stopped. Why are you calling me? Because I don't know who else to call. Because we're desperate. Because you need money. Silence. That's all I ever was to you, wasn't it? A bank account with a pulse. That's not fair. Fair. I kept my voice calm. Level. You drained $80,000 from me. You tried to refinance my house without my knowledge. You let your daughter's boyfriend live in my home for 6 months without telling me. And now 1 week after you leave, you're calling asking for more. It's just $2,000, a loan. I'll pay you back. No, Stuart, please. I'm not your solution anymore, Susan. I'm not your safety net. I'm not your backup plan. Figure it out yourself. Her voice changed, got harder. I thought you wouldn't actually cut me off completely. I thought that you'd care. I cared for 18 months, and you used every day of it to take advantage of me. I'm done caring. You're being cruel. I'm being clear. There's a difference. Another silence. Longer this time. Then, I was wrong about you. I thought you were kind. I am kind, just not to people who steal from me. If that's how you want to remember this, Susan. I cut her off. I don't want to remember this at all. That's the point. She hung up. I stood there holding the phone for a minute, waiting to feel something. Guilt, maybe. Regret. The pull to call her back to send the money to fix the problem like I'd always done. Nothing came. I set the phone down, picked up the plane, went back to work on the oak. That night I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and a pen. Wrote a list. Things I want to do. Learn new woodworking patterns, dovetail joints, inlay work. Fish more often, once a week, maybe twice. Visit Nathan in Colorado, haven't seen my son in 3 years. Fix the back porch steps, been meaning to for 2 summers. Read more Louis L'Amour books, sitting unread on shelf. The list wasn't long. 5 things, simple things. Things I'd been putting off because I was too tired, too stressed, too busy dealing with Susan and Lydia and the endless drain of money and energy and time. Now I had time. Now I had energy. Now I had my life back. I looked at the list. My handwriting, my goals, my future. This was what freedom felt like. Not flashy, not triumphant. Just mine. Day 35. I thought the hard part was behind me. Then Derek Palmer's motorcycle appeared in my driveway. It was Tuesday evening, the first week of December, and the air had that sharp bite that comes with frost settling on bare ground. The sun had dropped behind the ridgeline about 20 minutes earlier, leaving the sky a dull orange fading to gray. I had just pulled my Silverado into the driveway after a quick run to the grocery store, 2 plastic bags in hand, containing the basics, milk, eggs, bread, and a pound of decent coffee. The kind of shopping I could do without checking a bank balance or wondering if someone else had already drained the account. I was halfway to the front door when I heard the engine. Not the smooth hum of a car, but the deep, aggressive rumble of a motorcycle. I turned and saw him. Black Harley-style bike leather jacket zipped to the collar, no helmet. He rolled into my driveway like he owned it. Cut the engine and swung one leg over the seat with the kind of casual arrogance that told me he'd done this before. Derek Palmer, 28 years old, scruffy beard, the same face I'd seen on my doorbell camera for 6 months. The same guy who'd received $16,400 of my paycheck in the middle of the night. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. His presence was the message. I set the grocery bags on the porch steps and stayed where I was, 10 feet between us, my keys still in my hand. The driveway gravel crunched under his boots as he walked toward me, hands in his jacket pockets, breath misting in the cold air. "You Stuart Donnelly?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "I am." "You're the guy who kicked Lydia and her mom out with nowhere to go." I kept my voice level. I gave them 3 weeks' notice and clear terms. They chose not to accept them. Derek took another step forward. "You think that makes you right? You think kicking family to the curb over money makes you a good person? I think draining $80,000 from a joint account and hiding a boyfriend in my house for 6 months without permission doesn't make you family." His jaw tightened. "You owe them. I owe nothing. I already gave $80,000. That's 10 months of underground labor at 950 feet. You got 16,400 of it. I have the statements." He didn't deny it. He just stepped closer, close enough that I could smell cigarette smoke on his jacket. "You're going to fix this, old man. You're going to give Susan the $2,000 she needs for that deposit. And you're going to apologize for being a selfish piece of—" I pulled my phone from my pocket, unlocked it with my thumb, and tapped the green phone icon. Derek stopped mid-sentence. "What are you doing?" I held up one finger, put the phone to my ear, and heard the click of the line connecting. 911, what's your emergency? Katum. This is Stuart Donnelly, 207 Maple Ridge Road. There's a man on my property threatening me. I'd like an officer sent out. Derek's eyes widened. "You're calling the cops?" I ignored him. The operator's voice was calm and professional. "Are you in immediate danger, sir?" "Not yet. But he's standing in my driveway making threats and he's not leaving." "Can you describe the individual?" "A male, late 20s, black leather jacket, riding a black motorcycle. His name is Derek Palmer." Derek swore under his breath, turned and walked quickly back to his bike. He threw one leg over, fired up the engine, and glared at me from across the driveway. "You're going to regret this, old man." Then he twisted the throttle, spun the rear tire hard enough to leave a black streak across the gravel, and roared out onto Maple Ridge Road. The sound faded into the distance, but I knew he hadn't gone far. The operator was still on the line. "Sir, is the individual still on your property?" "He just left. But I have video evidence of him entering my home multiple times over the past 6 months, without my knowledge, and I'd like to file a report." "Officers are en route. Stay on the line until they arrive." I sat on the porch steps, phone in hand, groceries beside me, and waited. 8 minutes later, 2 patrol cars pulled into my driveway, lights flashing but no sirens. Officer Reeves stepped out first, a solid man in his 40s with a buzz cut and a no-nonsense expression. Officer Carter followed, younger, sharper, a notebook already in her hand. "Mr. Donnelly," Reeves asked. "That's me. You called about a threatening individual. Derek Palmer. He showed up uninvited, demanded money, and threatened me when I refused." Carter flipped open her notebook. "Has he been here before?" "Not since I discovered he'd been living in my house for 6 months while I was at work. I have doorbell footage from June through September showing him entering and leaving." Reeves raised an eyebrow. "You have that footage available?" "On my phone, cloud stored. I can show you right now." I pulled up the app, scrolled back to June 12th, and played the first clip. Derek entering through the front door at 10:17 in the morning, Lydia kissing him goodbye at 3:45. Reeves watched silently. Carter wrote. "How much did he take?" Carter asked. $16,400 in transfers. I have the bank statements inside." Reeves nodded. "We'll need copies of those. And we'll need a formal statement about tonight's threat." I gave them everything: the timeline, the transfers, the doorbell footage, the joint account drain, the forged mortgage application. By the time we finished, it was 7:30. "You should file for a PFA order," Reeves said. "Protection from abuse. It'll prohibit him from coming within 500 feet of you or your property. Given the evidence you have, it'll likely be granted within 48 hours. Where do I file?" "The county courthouse. Tomorrow morning, first thing. Bring this footage and the statements." I thanked them. They left. I stood in my driveway under the floodlight watching the taillights disappear down Maple Ridge Road. Then I texted Marcus, "Need backup." His reply came 30 seconds later. "On my way, bring coffee." He arrived at 7:45, stayed until 9, and we didn't talk much. We didn't need to. Sometimes presence is enough. After he left, I locked every door, double-checked the cameras, and set the restraining order paperwork on the kitchen table for tomorrow morning. The threats were over. Now the healing could begin. December became January. January became March. The seasons changed, and so did I. The house still felt too big. Some mornings the silence too loud, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not the tense walking on eggshells quiet of the last 18 months. This was the kind of silence where I could hear myself think again, where I could breathe without calculating the cost. The first Wednesday in December, Marcus convinced me to join him at Rosie's Diner for coffee. 6:30 in the morning, an hour before our shift. Inside, the air smelled like bacon grease and burnt coffee, and a group of men occupied the long corner booth near the window. Former miners and factory workers, and one retired truck driver. Marcus made 7, I made 8. Earl, the oldest, looked up when we walked in. White hair, thick glasses, suspenders over a flannel shirt. He gestured to the empty seat beside him. Stuart Wright, heard you're newly single. Small towns, everyone knows everything. I sat down. That's right. Rough time. It was. It's better now. Earl nodded once and poured me coffee from the pot on the table. Nobody pushed for details. That was small-town courtesy. They accepted me. That Wednesday morning ritual became an anchor. Coffee, eggs, and toast for $6.50, 45 minutes of talk about sports and weather and grandkids. Then we'd head to the mine. Simple. Grounding. Exactly what I needed. Mid-December, I started working on the birdhouse I'd abandoned 2 years earlier. I spent a weekend sanding, assembling, painting it a deep barn red. I mounted it on the oak tree in my backyard, 15 feet up, facing east. By mid-January, a pair of cardinals had moved in. I'd watch them from the kitchen window every morning, while my coffee brewed 2 bright red flashes against bare branches. It was a small victory, but it mattered. Late December, I checked my bank balance out of habit. The number on the screen stopped me cold. $4,200. The first time I'd been over $4,000 in 10 months. I stared at it for a long moment. $3,400 paycheck minus $1,800 in expenses left $1,600 in savings every month. No mysterious withdrawals. No 2 in the morning cash advances to someone I'd never met. Just my money sitting where I left it, growing slowly and steadily. Christmas came. I spent it alone, and it was a choice, not loneliness. I made a small turkey breast, mashed potatoes with real butter, and watched It's a Wonderful Life on the old television. Marcus had invited me to his daughter's house for dinner, but I'd declined. I wasn't ready for family chaos yet. But I appreciated the invite. January marked month 3. I called the credit card company on the 15th and told the woman on the phone I wanted to pay off the full balance. $8,000 in charges I hadn't made. She processed the payment. 2 minutes later, my balance read 0. 1 card down, 1 to go. My credit score started climbing. 680 in December. 695 by the end of January. Small steps, but forward. Saturday fishing trips with Marcus became routine. We'd meet at Millbrook Reservoir at 8 in the morning, thermoses of black coffee and bologna sandwiches wrapped in wax paper. We'd catch bass, admire them, release them back into the cold green water. Sometimes we talked. More often, we sat in comfortable silence. One Saturday in late January, Marcus glanced over at me. "You're smiling more, Stu." I hadn't noticed. "Am I?" "Yeah, it's good." February. I did something I hadn't done in years. I treated myself. $220 on new work boots. Timberland, steel toes, good quality leather. I didn't feel guilty. It was my money, my choice. I'd been wearing painful boots for 2 years, saving money for a household that never saved anything for me. That realization didn't make me angry anymore. It just made me sad for the man I'd been. That same week, I bought an $18 ribeye steak, the kind with good marbling and a thick cut. I grilled it on my back porch, cooked it to medium rare, and ate it at my dining table with Beethoven's Sixth Symphony playing softly from the old radio. Susan had hated classical music. I loved it. I was reclaiming my own tastes piece by piece, meal by meal. March brought Tommy back to work. 6 months of recovery, a titanium rod in his femur, and a slight limp he'd carry the rest of his life. At lunch, he sat down across from me. "Heard you had your own cave-in at home, Stu." I smiled faintly. Roof came down. "But I'm rebuilding." "Good man. Life's too short to live in unstable tunnels. Mining wisdom. The best kind." Mid-March. I went to the doctor for a routine checkup. When he finished, he looked at me over his glasses. "Whatever you changed, Stuart, keep doing it." My weight was down 15 pounds. My blood pressure had dropped. I was sleeping 7 hours a night instead of 4 or 5. The chest pain was gone. Late March, I realized the last call from Susan had been 89 days earlier. No calls since. No texts. I hadn't thought about her in weeks. Not with anger. Not with regret. I just hadn't thought about her. That I understood was what healing looked like. By the end of month 4, my savings account held $8,400. I had $12,000 left in debt. My house was fully mine. My car was paid off. My income was steady. Financial stability had been restored. By April, I'd stopped checking my phone for her name. Stopped rehearsing conversations that would never happen. The wondering had been replaced by knowing. I was 62 years old. I'd spent 38 years underground, 18 months in a broken marriage, and 3 months learning what peace actually felt like. It felt like morning coffee without tension, like fishing without checking the time, like sleeping through the night. It felt simple, and simple, I was learning, was underrated. 8 months, 2 seasons, long enough to forget some scars, not long enough to forgive them. It was a Saturday afternoon in June, the kind of warm summer day where the breeze comes through the open workshop door and carries the smell of fresh-cut grass. 75 degrees clear sky, not a cloud. I was finishing the oak bookshelf I'd started back in month 1, the one I'd abandoned when everything fell apart. 6 shelves, hand-sanded mortise and tenon joints, the kind of craftsmanship you can't rush. The radio played Tom Petty, and I was content. Truly content. The knock on the screen door was soft, hesitant. I looked up and saw a woman standing outside. It took me a full second to recognize her. Susan, but different. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, gray streaks she'd stopped covering. No salon dye, just natural aging. Her face was lined and makeup-free, the kind of tired that settles into skin after months of hard work. Her hands were rough and red, and chapped nails, short and unpolished. She wore faded jeans that looked like they'd come from Goodwill, a plain t-shirt, and worn sneakers with frayed laces. Everything about her body language was different. Defeated. Humble. I set the sandpaper down and removed my glasses. Susan. "Hi, Stuart, can I come in?" I hesitated, then nodded and opened the screen door. She stepped inside, her eyes sweeping the organized tools, the half-finished projects. "You've been busy. Staying busy helps." I gestured to the old workshop stool near the window. She sat. I leaned against the workbench. "How did you know I'd be here?" "Saturday afternoon. You always loved your workshop." "Still do." She folded her hands in her lap, then held them out toward me, palms up. "I'm not here for money." "Okay. I'm working 2 jobs now. Morning shift at Valley Diner 6 to 2. Evening housekeeping at Budget Inn 4 to 10. That's hard work." "It is." She turned her hands over slowly, showing me the damage. Rough skin, cracked and calloused from scrubbing and dish soap. My hands are always sore. I come home and there's nothing left. No energy, no money, just empty. She paused. "That's how you felt, wasn't it? For 18 months. Coming home empty." I nodded once. "Yes, I understand now. What you meant. About boundaries. About being used. What changed? Working 70 hours a week just to make rent and groceries. Counting every dollar. Choosing between gas and food. Lydia and I, we fight now. About money. Lydia works at Target. $15.50 an hour. Derek left her 2 months after we moved out. The second, she couldn't send him money anymore. "I'm sorry to hear that." Susan looked at me surprised. "Are you really?" "I'm sorry she got hurt. I'm not sorry the situation ended. He was using her the whole time. Just like..." She stopped, swallowed. "Just like we used you." It was the first time she'd said it that plainly. Her tears started then, not the manipulative kind I'd seen before, but the exhausted kind. I'm not asking to come back. I know that door is closed. I kept my voice gentle. It is. I just needed you to know that I see it. What we took from you. Thank you for saying that. Are you happy? I looked around my workshop. The organized tools, the half-finished projects at my own pace, the screen door open to my yard, my house, my life. I'm better than okay, Susan. I'm free. She nodded and the tears fell. I hope you find someone. Someone who deserves you. I'm not looking, but thank you. A long silence settled. Susan stood. I should go. I just needed to say it. Face to face. I'm sorry, Stuart. Truly sorry. I believe you. I think you're sorry now. I wish you'd been sorry 10 months ago. But growth happens when it happens. We walked to the door together. Susan paused at the threshold. For what it's worth, I did love you, at the beginning. I answered honestly. I know, I loved you too. But love without respect isn't enough. She stepped outside, turned back once. Take care of yourself, Stuart. You too, Susan. I mean that. I watched her walk to her car. A 2008 Honda Civic, faded blue paint, dented bumper rust spots along the wheel wells. She got in, and the engine coughed twice before catching. She backed out, slowly waved once through the window. I raised my hand in acknowledgement, not invitation. The car turned onto the street and disappeared. I returned to the workbench, picked up the sandpaper, and went back to the bookshelf. My mind was already back in the present moment. Susan was already past tense. I finished the bookshelf that evening. 6 shelves, hand-sanded, stained dark walnut sealed with 3 coats of polyurethane. It would go to Oakdale Library on Monday. A donation, something made with my hands that would serve the community. Susan had come to say goodbye. I'd let her. We'd both needed it. But as I ran my hand over the smooth wood grain one last time, I realized something. I'd already said goodbye to her months ago. Today was just her catching up. October again. 1 year since the card was declined. 1 year since everything changed. Wednesday morning, 5:45. I woke naturally, no alarm, and sat on the edge of my bed, with my feet flat on the cool wood floor. I stretched my back, felt the familiar ache that 38 years underground had carved into my spine. My knees creaked when I stood. I reached for the hearing aids on my nightstand and fitted them into both ears. My body wasn't new. It wasn't healed, but I was rested. Deeply, truly rested in a way I hadn't been in years. I walked barefoot to the kitchen and made coffee the way I always did. Dark roast, 2 sugars, the smell filling the quiet house. I carried the mug out to the front porch and sat on the swing I'd repaired back in March. 6 o'clock. Sunrise. The temperature hovered around 48 degrees, cold enough that frost covered the grass in a thin white sheet. The cardinals were at the birdhouse, the same pair I'd been watching since January, or maybe new ones. Mrs. Peterson walked her golden retriever past my house, and she waved. I waved back. Small town rhythm, familiar, good. I sat there with my coffee and thought about 1 year ago today. The pharmacy, the card declined. The confusion, the embarrassment, the beginning of awareness. If someone had told me then where I'd be now sitting on my own porch, in my own quiet, would I have believed it? Probably not. But here I was. 6:30. I drove to Rosie's Diner. The Wednesday coffee group was still going strong, had been for nearly a year now. Earl, Marcus, Pete, Doc, Johnny, Ray. They looked up when I approached, and Earl gestured to the empty chair they always left for me. Stu, how's the week treating you? Can't complain. You, grandkid's birthday this Saturday. Big party at the house. You're invited if you want to come. Appreciate it. I'll think about it. I probably wouldn't go. I still wasn't ready for the chaos of family gatherings, but I appreciated the invite. That mattered. We ordered coffee, eggs, toast. $6.50, same as always. The conversation moved easily. The Steelers game, the upcoming election, someone's truck breaking down. Normal. Grounding. Exactly what I needed. When we finished, Marcus and I walked out together. Fishing Saturday. 8 a.m. See you there. 7:30 to 6 o'clock, I was underground. Mine number 7 seam depth, 950 feet. The same crew. Tommy fully recovered now from his broken leg. Big Pete Ray, a few others. The work was the same. Drilling, loading coal, setting roof bolts. Coal dust in the air, noise at 95 decibels, the humid heat. But the feeling was different. When the shift ended and I drove home, I wasn't bracing for tension. I wasn't calculating how much money might be missing or what argument might be waiting. I was just going home. To my space, my peace. At 4:45, I stopped at Oakdale Pharmacy. Blood pressure medication refill, $47.50. The same pharmacy from 1 year ago. The same clerk behind the counter. She rang up the prescription and I handed her my card. A different card now. My individual account. The machine beeped. Approved. Have a good evening, Mr. Donnelly. You too. A small victory. But it still mattered. 1 year ago, that card had been declined. Today it went through without a hitch. Full circle. I arrived home at 6:15 and entered through the back door. The house was quiet, but it was the content kind of quiet. I made dinner. Grilled chicken breast, roasted vegetables. I ate at the dining table with a Mozart piano concerto playing softly and the newspaper spread in front of me. No rush. No one asking when I'd be done. Just me, my meal, my time. Before bed, I checked my bank account. Savings $23,600. Debt zero. The last credit card had been paid off in July, and my credit score had climbed to 735. Financial stability had been fully restored. The last call from Susan had been 4 months ago, back in June. No calls since. Lydia, no contact. I realized I hadn't checked my phone anxiously in months, hadn't monitored my accounts obsessively, hadn't braced for disaster. The trust had been rebuilt, not in other people, but in myself. At 9, I finished for the night and returned to the house. I showered, changed into clean clothes, and picked up the book from my nightstand. Lonesome Dove. I read 30 pages, set the book down, turned off the light, and closed my eyes. Morning would come again. Mine work, coffee group, workshop projects, fishing with Marcus on Saturdays. Simple routines that added up to a life I'd chosen, not one that had been chosen for me. My hands, my life, my choice. Tomorrow, I'd wake, make coffee, watch the sunrise from the porch swing. And that would be enough. If you've stayed with me through this family story until the very end, I want to say something important. I'm not a hero. I'm just a 63-year-old coal miner who finally learned to say no. God gave me 38 years underground and 1 year above ground to figure out what mattered. Took me long enough. This family story isn't about winning. It's about surviving with your dignity intact. When I look back at those 18 months, I see a man who confused love with obligation, who thought providing meant sacrificing everything, including himself. Don't be like me. Don't wait until your account hits zero and your chest tightens 950 feet underground before you realize you've been living someone else's life. Some people called this dad revenge, but revenge implies I wanted to hurt them. I didn't. I just wanted my life back. That's not revenge, that's self-preservation. The hardest lesson I learned: boundaries aren't cruelty. Saying no isn't abandonment. And walking away from people who drain you isn't selfish, it's survival. This dad revenge story is simply about reclaiming what was mine all along. In my view, family isn't a title you're born with. It's earned through respect, honesty, and mutual care. Blood doesn't give anyone the right to bleed you dry. If this family story resonates with you, or if you've ever felt like someone's personal ATM, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Share this dad revenge journey with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to this channel for more honest conversations about life boundaries and finding peace. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. I appreciate every one of you. A word of caution: upcoming stories may contain fictional elements crafted for educational purposes. If this content doesn't suit you, feel free to explore other videos that better match your preferences. Take care of yourselves. You're worth it.